Hi, Dom from Johnny Red Games, and in this video we're going to talk a little bit about the story of Hunger and Lies. In this delightful tale, you've got several different themes of stories happening all at once. There's this big intermingling thing. However, a lot of the story kind of happens behind the scenes. The party has to maybe unravel this, if even they even touch any of it. So there's a lot of backstory here for a GM. Just a little heads up on that. But it is important for understanding the course of events in the module and why and how the villain is going to do what the villain's going to do, or the many different villains. There's a lot of different kind of actors in this. But the base story of this is that the party gets to town, they're on downtime, or they're just kind of relaxing for a moment, or maybe they're not, maybe they're just gearing up for an adventure, whatever happens. But murders are suddenly happening in town. Whether or not they've already started happening or not is up to you and the GM. You can actually start this before the murders start, or it's intended to be within the first few murders when they start realizing there's a problem. And it's not just one murder, there's several of them, and they're happening night after night after night. Then the party starts to get involved in that, hopefully. If they don't want to get involved, again, it progresses to a point where they may have to. Of course, we don't want to railroad anybody here, but there's a lot of pressure in this to have some sort of adventuring group help out. So if not them, maybe another party. Who knows? But hopefully your party would want to deal with this. But the story is there's murders going on every night, and the party basically has to stop it. That's a real brief overview. And I'm trying to keep it brief because it is a murder mystery adventure, and I don't want to give too much away, especially if you want to play the adventure. But if you're backing it, you're probably going to want to run it as opposed to playing it. So here are some spoilers. Heads up. Close your ears, skip ahead if you need to. Spoiler time. The villain in this is a very humble citizen of Westgate Town who's got an unrequited love. And he accidentally, well, at least as far as he's aware, accidentally awakens this avatar of one of the goddesses of Westgate, the Westgate setting, who is the goddess of lies and deceit for the most part. And he's well aware of this, but she does offer him the chance to get his love that he wants. And I actually styled this a little bit over the storyline of, if anybody's familiar with the old poem Pamphilus, it's very heavily inspired by that notion, where he's influenced to go do a thing, and it doesn't really turn out in his favor. It doesn't follow that poem very closely in terms of the finale of it, but the idea of it sprang from that. But anyway, so our villain decides to do what this goddess suggests he should do, and he starts killing people, and eventually turns into this hunger. He actually ends up starting to eat parts of the people, and eventually the people entirely, as his body starts to transform and change into something very, very monstrous. That's just the baseline of the adventure itself. This also includes inter-guild rivalries between a couple of the kind of lesser guilds, and one of the guilds is sort of a thuggish style guild. They're trying to get in there and force their way around, and so there's little intrigues going on there. You've got city guard influence. You've got just the people around town doing their own thing. There's a small cult involved in there that's related to the goddess. There might be other ones. You've got religious issues, lots of other stuff, and we don't even really delve into a lot of it. We sort of set the seeds in motion, though. The little threads are all over the place. So there's quite a lot of ability for a GM in this story to take this in all sorts of directions, or if they already have things going on, to slip it in and have their own many intrigues intertwined. It's what makes this adventure really neat. It just kind of slides in. And that villain is just sort of a sore thumb in everybody's hand. It's kind of fun to see that happen. At the same time, I did write this to be a very serious story. Not everybody out there plays serious RPGs. I always do that. I've always had a very heavy, very serious, almost simulation-heavy style game, but I like to make sure that there's still a fun element, of course. It's just that this is not designed to be played in a silly style game. Although I think it works. I've just never heard anybody do it. So if you do play it in more of a sillier game, or especially like a high magic game, certainly do that. This was really made for sort of like a low-mid magic setting as well. But again, it doesn't really matter what it's made for. I'm just telling you that so you understand the context behind it. Partly because one of the reviews we got on this when it first got released, we got great reviews on all of our modules. This is the only one that didn't get a full 5-star review. And we're going to try to fix that with this printing of it. But the only reason we lost a star was our reviewer. This was an unsolicited reviewer, so I just happened to find this, actually. It wasn't even sent to me. But a reviewer complained that out of my 100 plus NPCs in the book, they all seemed very normal. And I was very confused about that because I was like, why wouldn't they be normal? And then I realized how people were kind of playing it around 2000, 2012 is that they're all very high magic campaigns, and every single NPC had some sort of quirk going on where they've got some sort of crazy magical thing happening. That's what the expectation was. And I made a living, breathing town of regular folks who are just trying to like work every day in a sword and sorcery setting. And apparently that did not go well with one reviewer. So, not that it's a totally normal town. There are some things going on. I mean, we do have in the original printing, there's a sorcerer in town that's got a glass method that he's got imprisoned. I mean, there's some weird stuff, and that's still here. He's still in there. But we decided, I did tweak it up a little bit. So there's a few other kind of things, weird things going on with the NPCs in this. It was just kind of an odd response to the book, and I decided to kind of make that a little better. So anyway, but that's the adventure. That's Of Hunger and Lies. It's a Gaslight style murder mystery adventure set in a medieval fantasy setting, very in line with the old Ravenloft Planescape stuff from the 1990s, 80s, late 80s, early 90s, and we're really trying to keep it there. And what I mean by that too is that it does have the kind of Ravenloft Gothic horror feel about it. At the same time, you've got a villain involved in this. That villain becomes very, very, very difficult to deal with. The party is probably not going to be able to defeat the villain in most parties. I've run this several times. That they have never defeated the villain in this, and that's kind of the way it was designed. It was made to be a game for a party to lose, really. Not that they have to, but I've just never seen a party do it. But that's okay. They certainly can. The villain, though, is so dangerous, and I designed that kind of after the Planescape concept, is sometimes you're dealing with entities that are just way beyond your ability to handle in a combat way. You have to outthink them or enter a dialogue with them to some degree, or sometimes just kind of put a pin in it and deal with it later. However you need to do it. And that's really what we're dealing with here in Of Hunger and Lies. So there's not always a very clear finale to the game, but that's the way it was designed. It was made to be something where at the end they're sort of scratching their heads and wondering what just happened. Did we lose or not? I don't even know, but I think we solved the murders. Maybe. If that happens at the end of your game, then the module was successful. I don't know if your storytelling will be, but that was the intent. Anyway, hope you back it. Hope you enjoy the adventure. It is a lot of fun. If anything, you got a really fun town area out of it you can use for a lot of other stuff. You don't always have to, run the main storyline. Do whatever you got to do with it. All right. So again, Genera Games, Of Hunger and Lies. Please back it today.